say the right words to a woman, and she will make the first move on you without even realizing why. You and I both know most men are stuck in the same loop. You see a woman you like, you carry all the pressure. You have to walk over, start the conversation, risk the rejection, plan the date, make the move. Meanwhile, she sits there, sending little signals and waiting to be chosen, while you carry all the weight. And even in a relationship, it is still you starting the kiss, you starting the touch, you starting the intimacy. While a part of you quietly wonders, does she even want me the way I want her? Here is the truth, my friend. It is not that women never want to make the first move. It is that most of them are terrified of how it will look, how it will be judged, and whether it will blow up in their face. But there is a way to flip that, a way to use one simple idea and a few specific lines to give her permission to be bold, to feel safe, and to feel turned on by the idea of coming toward you first. Tonight, I am going to show you exactly how to do that. Let's get into it. Number 1, the phrase that sparks her desire. My friend, let me tell you something most men never learn. Women are attracted to boldness, but they rarely show boldness first. They wait. They overthink. They hesitate. Not because they don't feel desire, but because they're afraid of how it will make them look. That is why this first phrase is so powerful. It doesn't seduce her by force. It gives her permission to act on the desire she already has. And when a woman feels permitted, she becomes 10 times bolder than you expect. To make this real, let me show you a situation I see constantly with men in their 50s. Michael, 58, from Colorado, had a coworker he found incredibly attractive. Her name was Lauren, 55. They had chemistry, they joked, they made eye contact. But every time Michael waited for her to make a move, nothing happened. She kept everything safe, polite, professional. One day during lunch, the topic drifted into dating. Instead of freezing up or overthinking, Michael used the phrase I'm about to give you. Calm, relaxed, leaning back in his chair, he said, "You know what I find incredibly attractive? A woman who actually makes the first move." He didn't wink. He didn't smirk. He didn't make it about her. He just said it like a man stating a simple truth about the world. And here is the magic. That single sentence planted a seed in Lauren's mind. It reframed something she had always been conditioned to avoid. Suddenly, in her mind, making the first move was not desperate, not masculine, not risky. It was bold. It was feminine. It was admired. This is how the psychology works. Women carry years of messaging telling them not to initiate. So when you drop a phrase like this, spoken with confidence and zero neediness, you flip that entire script. She no longer feels judged. She feels invited. Not invited to chase you, but invited to express her desire in a way she secretly wants to. And it didn't take long. The next day, she walked by Michael's desk, touched his arm lightly, and said, "We should grab a drink sometime after work." She didn't even realize she had made the first move. That's the part guys never understand. When you shift the emotional frame, women act on impulse, not calculation. Another example comes from a man named Brian, 57, who met a woman named Cynthia, 53, at a friend's backyard barbecue. They had a great conversation, and when the night ended, he felt that familiar frustration. If only she would show me something. Instead of pressing, he simply said, "I'm a fan of women who go after what they want. It's rare, and it's unforgettable." He said it softly, with that calm, older man confidence most younger men don't have. And just like that, Cynthia smiled, bit her lip, and asked for his number. Not the other way around. The phrase works because it combines three things. It signals confidence. It removes judgment. It awakens desire she already had. She doesn't feel pressured. She feels safe. She feels bold. She feels turned on by the idea of being the one who takes action. If this makes sense to you, drop a comment and write, "I want this energy." Stay with me, because next, we're going to break down why women wait for permission in the first place. You don't want to miss this. Number 2, why women wait for permission. Let's be real, my friend. Men love to imagine that women don't make the first move because they're shy or polite or traditional. But the real reason goes much deeper. Women wait for permission because the world has trained them to. Every generation, every culture, every social rule has told women the same thing. Don't be too forward. Don't show too much interest. Don't risk rejection. Don't look desperate. And those rules get wired into them long before they ever meet you. That is why a woman can feel attraction, curiosity, chemistry, and still hold herself back. Inside her mind, two voices are fighting. One voice says, "I want him." The other says, "But what if he judges me? What if I look needy? What if I'm wrong?" And until you flip that second voice, she stays frozen. This is where the Stoic angle becomes important. Epictetus said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Women live this every day. Their fear isn't the man himself. The fear is the story in their head about how their action might be interpreted. They imagine embarrassment. They imagine rejection. They imagine losing feminine value. And because imagination is louder than reality, they choose safety instead of desire. That fear is multiplied by something else: social conditioning. From the time girls are teenagers, they hear the same messages. Let the man lead. A real lady doesn't chase. Don't look too eager. So now you understand why women wait. It's not because they don't feel desire. It's because no one ever showed them that making the first move can actually be feminine, attractive, and welcome. When you realize this, everything changes. Because now you understand that your job isn't to force anything. Your job is to make her feel safe enough to act on what she already feels. This is also why the phrase in the previous part works so well. It cuts straight through that internal battle. It tells her, without pressure, that taking action doesn't make her look desperate. It makes her look bold, confident, sexy. It lets her know you won't judge her. And when a woman stops worrying about judgment, her desire becomes stronger than her fear. Think about the world she lives in. If she texts first, she wonders if you'll see her as clingy. If she asks you out, she wonders if you'll laugh about it with your friends. If she kisses you first, she wonders if you'll think she's too easy. These thoughts are running through her mind even when she's genuinely attracted to you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of others is a weight too heavy for the soul." Women feel that weight intensely. Every action gets filtered through social pressure. Every impulse gets checked by fear of being misunderstood. She wants to move, but she won't risk misreading the situation unless she knows you won't weaponize her vulnerability. So when you speak with calm confidence, when you make it clear you admire women who go after what they want, you lift that weight off her shoulders. You give her emotional permission to be the version of herself she normally hides. And the moment she feels that freedom, she stops holding back. Not because you forced her, because you finally removed the barrier that kept her frozen. If this clicks for you, drop a comment and write, "I understand this." Stay with me, because next we break down how the right words make her feel safe enough to take the first step. You don't want to miss this. Number 3. The words that make her feel safe to move first. My friend, here is where everything starts to click. A woman will only make the first move when she feels 2 things at the same time: desire and safety. Desire pulls her toward you. Safety tells her she won't be judged, rejected, or embarrassed for showing that desire. When you understand how to use the right words to create that safety, the entire dynamic shifts. She stops fighting herself. She stops overthinking. She stops holding back. And she finally steps toward you instead of waiting for you to do everything. Let me show you a real situation many men your age deal with. Richard, 56, from Arizona, met a woman named Denise, 54, at a charity fundraiser. They hit it off right away. The conversation flowed, the chemistry was obvious, and Denise kept giving those subtle signals women give when they're interested. But like most women, she never initiated a thing. She waited for Richard to carry the interaction, and Richard, like most men, felt that frustration of always having to be the one who pushes the energy forward. The turning point came during a quiet moment when they were talking about dating in their 40s and 50s. Richard didn't flirt aggressively. He didn't try to corner her. He just said calmly and confidently, "You know what I really respect? A woman who goes after what she wants. It's rare, but it's incredibly attractive." That one line changed everything. Denise smiled in a way she hadn't all evening. She tucked her hair behind her ear. She leaned in. And the next day, she texted him first with, "Are you free this weekend? I'd love to see you again." Richard didn't chase that text. He didn't pry it out of her. She sent it because the words he used the night before created emotional safety. He told her, without saying it directly, "You won't be judged for wanting me." Now compare that to another situation. Greg, 58, from Ohio, met a woman named Caroline, 55, at a family friend's dinner. They had good chemistry, but Caroline was reserved, careful, holding herself back. Instead of pushing, Greg played it slow. During a conversation about how dating has changed over time, he said, "Honestly, I think it's amazing when a woman makes the first move. It shows confidence, and I admire that." He didn't point to her. He didn't imply anything. He just stated a belief with masculine calm. Caroline didn't react right away, but later that night, when she was leaving, she touched his arm and said softly, "If you ever want to grab coffee sometime, I'd like that." That was her making the move, and she never would have done it without Greg giving her the words that made her feel safe. This is the psychological pattern you need to understand. Women hold back not because they lack desire, but because they fear misreading the situation. They don't want to look foolish. They don't want to lose face. They don't want to step outside the role they've been conditioned into. Your words show them that stepping forward is not only okay, but attractive. You remove the risk. You remove the judgment. You remove the fear. And once those barriers fall, her natural instinct takes over. If this hits home, drop a comment and write, "I've seen this." Stay tuned, because next we'll break down exactly how to plant the seed in her mind without making it obvious. You don't want to miss this. Number 4, flip her instinct with one simple frame. My friend, this is the part most men never understand. A woman's instinct is shaped long before she ever meets you. She has been taught, trained, and conditioned her entire life to wait. Wait for the man to initiate. Wait for the man to express interest. Wait for the man to take the risk. Even when she likes you, even when she feels the spark, her instinct tells her to hold back. But the moment you shift the frame, her instinct flips. Suddenly, what she was taught to hide becomes something she wants to express. And it all happens because of one simple idea. You're not telling her to pursue you. You're telling her that when a woman pursues what she wants, it is attractive, feminine, and admired. That frame changes everything. You see, women aren't wired to reject boldness. They're wired to fear the consequences of being bold. When you remove that fear, her natural instinct becomes curiosity, action, and desire. She moves toward you not out of pressure, but because the frame you gave her makes it feel right. Stoic philosophy captures this perfectly. Seneca said, "We suffer not from events, but from the perception we have of them." Women don't fear making the first move itself. They fear what it means. They fear appearing desperate. They fear misreading the situation. They fear losing their feminine identity. But when you change the meaning, you change the behavior. When you reframe assertiveness as confidence instead of desperation, you free her to act on the attraction she already feels. Let me break it down for you. When you say calmly and naturally, "I think it's incredibly attractive when a woman knows what she wants," you're not flirting. You're not pushing. You're not cornering her. You're simply redefining the behavior she was taught to avoid. You're giving her a new lens, a new interpretation. Suddenly, the idea of making the first move becomes exciting instead of risky, bold instead of shameful, feminine instead of desperate. And the brilliance of this frame is that it doesn't matter what stage you're in. If she barely knows you, it breaks the tension. If she already likes you, it unlocks her confidence. If you're in a long-term relationship, it reignites the spark she used to show you in the beginning. This is why the men who understand framing never have to chase. Women chase them because their presence creates emotional freedom. They feel safe. They feel unjudged. They feel able to express desire in a way they rarely do with anyone else. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes colored by the thoughts it holds." And when you plant the right thoughts in a woman's mind, thoughts that celebrate her feminine boldness, her actions naturally shift to match that new color. That is the power of the simple frame you're learning here. You aren't manipulating. You aren't convincing. You're removing the chains that kept her silent. And when you do that, she becomes far more expressive, far more curious, and far more willing to come towards you on her own. Before we move on, if you want access to the deeper psychological tools, the advanced communication techniques, and the private scripts that I can't share publicly, make sure you join the channel membership. Everything I can't say here, I say in there. Now, if you're ready to take this even further, stick with me. Next, we're going to talk about exactly how to plant the seed in her mind, so the idea of making the first move feels like her idea, not yours. You don't want to miss this. Number 5. How to plant the seed in her mind. My friend, this is where the real magic happens. Women rarely act on desire immediately. Their attraction grows in waves, and their decisions come from feelings, not logic. If you want her to make the first move, you don't push her. You don't hint aggressively. You don't ask directly. You plant an idea so naturally, so quietly, that she starts thinking it was her thought from the beginning. When a woman believes the move is her idea, she becomes bold, confident, and far more open than you expect. Let me show you how this works in the real world. Mark, 59, from Virginia, met a woman named Elaine, 56, at a wine tasting. She was warm, funny, and clearly interested, but she kept everything very safe. All her signals were subtle, nothing direct, nothing risky. Most men would try to force momentum at that point, but Mark didn't. Instead, he waited for the right moment and simply said, "I've always admired women who know what they want. It's rare, and it's beautiful." He didn't point it at her. He didn't wink. He didn't change his tone. He just said it as a general truth. And here's the psychology. When you state something as your natural preference, a woman's mind automatically checks herself against that frame. She asks, "Do I fit that?" Even if she doesn't consciously answer, the question sits in her subconscious, influencing her behavior. The next day, Elaine messaged him first. Not because he pressured her, but because the idea had taken root. She wanted to be the kind of woman he admired. That's the seed doing its work. Now let's look at another example. Harold, 57, from Chicago, had a long-standing crush on a friend of a friend named Teresa, 54. She liked him, but she was cautious, careful, always waiting for him to lead every step. During a group conversation about dating in midlife, Harold dropped a sentence that changed everything. "It's always unforgettable when a woman makes the first move. Most men won't admit that, but it's true." Simple, calm, not pointed at her. 2 days later, Teresa invited him to grab coffee. Her idea, her initiative, her move. She felt ownership of it, because Harold planted the seed in a way that felt safe, flattering, and subtle. Here's what men your age need to understand. Women respond to identity. If you describe a behavior as attractive, rare, or admirable, she instinctively wants to align with that image, especially if she already feels some spark with you. The seed works because it bypasses logic and speaks directly to her self-perception. She doesn't think, "He wants me to make the first move." She thinks, "Making the first move might actually feel exciting. I could do that." That shift is everything, and you have to deliver these lines with the right masculine tone. Slow, relaxed, zero pressure. When you speak like a man who's simply expressing his taste, not begging, not hinting, not hoping, she feels free. Women act freely when they don't feel watched or judged. Think of it like this. You're not planting a command. You're planting a possibility. You're showing her a version of herself she might enjoy stepping into. You're giving her a role she feels excited to play. And once that idea takes root, her actions become natural, bold, and entirely self-driven. If you've ever seen this happen, drop a comment and write, "I've felt this. Stick with me," because next we're breaking down how to turn her curiosity into real action. Don't go anywhere. Number 6. The subtle line that makes her bold. My friend, this is where everything becomes effortless. Women don't become bold because you pressure them, impress them, or chase them. They become bold because something you say unlocks a part of them they normally keep hidden. One subtle line, delivered with calm, masculine confidence, can flip her entire behavior. Not because it manipulates her, but because it frees her from the fear of being misunderstood. And when that fear dissolves, boldness takes its place. To understand why this works, you need to remember something essential about female psychology. Women don't want to be the aggressor, but they do want to feel wanted. They don't want to lead the dance, but they do want to feel like they're choosing you. The subtle line I'm about to show you taps directly into that desire and choice balance. It lets her express interest without feeling like she's stepping out of her feminine role. The line is simple. I always appreciate a woman who takes initiative. It shows confidence in the most attractive way. Not aggressive, not flirty, not pointed at her. Just a calm statement about the world. When you say this, you shift the meaning of female initiative from desperate to desirable. And once you do that, everything inside her loosens. She feels allowed. She feels encouraged. She feels admired for something she normally suppresses. Stoic philosophy fits perfectly here. Marcus Aurelius said, "If something is difficult, do it gently." That is exactly what this line accomplishes. It gently removes the difficulty she associates with taking action. It lowers the emotional cost. It softens the risk. Women aren't afraid of wanting a man. They're afraid of how that want will be judged. Your subtle line removes the judgment, so the desire can finally express itself. Here's what's happening under the surface. When you say something like, "I appreciate when a woman takes initiative," her mind automatically starts comparing herself to that identity. She begins to imagine situations where she could take initiative with you, and the moment she imagines it with even a hint of excitement, the pattern becomes real. Women act based on emotional imagery. If the image feels good, they step toward it. And the beauty of this line is that it works in every context. If you're just getting to know her, it creates curiosity. If you already have chemistry, it opens the door wider. If you're in a long-term relationship, it reignites her confidence. It works because it never puts her on the spot. You're not asking her to be bold. You're simply redefining boldness as attractive. And most women want to be seen as attractive to a man they're drawn to. They want to feel desired, but they also want to feel powerful in how they express that desire. This line gives them that power. Men your age often make the mistake of trying too hard to get the ball rolling. They push, they hint, they over-explain. But feminine desire doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to permission. When she feels safe to act on her feelings, she will move faster than you ever expected. When she feels judged, she shuts down instantly. That's why this subtle line works. It doesn't demand, it invites. It paints a picture of her at her most confident, most feminine, and most desirable. And once that picture is in her head, she wants to step into it. If this makes sense, drop a comment and write, "I choose confidence." Stay tuned, because next we're going to talk about how to take that spark and turn her curiosity into real, unmistakable action. You don't want to miss this. Number 7, turn her curiosity into action. All right, my friend, here's where everything becomes real. Curiosity is the spark, but action is the fire. A woman can be curious about you, attracted to you, even quietly imagining things with you, yet still never take a single step forward. Why? Because curiosity alone is not enough. She needs a nudge, not from pressure, not from chasing, but from the environment you create with your words, your presence, and your energy. When you understand how to guide that curiosity into movement, you stop being the man who waits and become the man she naturally gravitates toward. Let me show you how this plays out with real people. Thomas, 58, from Florida, met a woman named Jenna, 55, at a community art event. She was clearly intrigued by him. She asked questions. She laughed at his jokes. She lingered in conversations longer than necessary. But like many women her age, she kept everything safe. Thomas felt the connection, but he didn't want to be the guy who pushes too hard. So instead, he used a strategy that shifts curiosity into action. During a conversation about relationships changing as people get older, he simply said, "I respect when someone knows what they want and doesn't overthink it. Life's too short to hesitate." Then he went right back to the conversation without highlighting it. That line wasn't pressure. It wasn't a hint aimed at her. It was a mindset, a frame, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It gave Jenna a mental green light. Later that night, she walked over, touched his arm, and said, "We should continue this conversation sometime. Want to grab dinner this weekend?" That wasn't random. That was curiosity transformed into action. Now look at another example. Patrick, 56, from Oregon, met a woman named Allison, 54, at a friend's backyard get-together. She enjoyed his presence but held back. She wasn't the type to initiate anything romantic. So Patrick didn't chase, didn't press, didn't hover. He just dropped one simple line at the right moment. "I like when someone takes the lead sometimes. It's refreshing." And he delivered it calmly, like a man who means what he says. Something shifted inside her. The hesitation softened. The next day, she messaged him first, asking if he'd like to take a walk by the lake. Women rarely do this spontaneously. They do it because something inside them feels encouraged, safe, and excited. Here's the psychology most men overlook. Women need to feel that making a move is their expression, not your expectation. If she feels pushed, she freezes. If she feels judged, she retreats. If she feels watched, she shuts down. But if her curiosity meets an environment where initiative is admired, not demanded, she steps forward on her own. You create that environment through your tone, your confidence, and your emotional calm. When you speak about boldness as attractive, when you talk about decisiveness as desirable, when you subtly frame initiative as something you enjoy, you give her permission to make the move without feeling she's stepping out of her feminine energy. That permission doesn't come from asking. It comes from embodying a mindset that makes her feel safe to act. Women act when they don't feel like they're risking shame. They act when their desire feels respected, not exposed. They act when your presence makes them feel seen, not judged. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be the master of your mind, not its slave." When you come across as a man who isn't controlled by the moment, who isn't needy for her reaction, who isn't desperate for her attention, she feels more free to move toward you. Your emotional independence puts her at ease, and that ease becomes action. If you've ever felt this shift, drop a comment and write, "I've lived this." Stay with me, because next we're unlocking the hidden instinct women follow when desire turns into pursuit. You don't want to miss this. Number 8. Unlock her hidden pursuit instinct. My friend, here's a truth most men never hear. Women do have a pursuit instinct. They just hide it better than men because society teaches them to. A woman can feel desire as strongly as you do. She can imagine making a move. She can picture kissing you first, texting you first, or asking you out. But she buries that instinct under layers of fear, judgment, and conditioning. When you understand how to unlock that instinct, she stops waiting and starts acting. And the best part? She believes the action came from her, not from you. To understand how this works, you need to see how women experience attraction. Their pursuit instinct only comes alive when 3 things overlap. She feels desire, she feels safe, and she feels invited into a dynamic where taking action enhances her femininity instead of threatening it. When those 3 pieces fall into place, she moves towards you naturally. This is where Stoic philosophy gives us a powerful insight. Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly." Attraction works the same way. A woman doesn't go from passive to bold in one jump. She shifts gradually as the emotional environment changes. Your presence, your tone, your mindset, these things soften her hesitation step by step until desire becomes movement. The key to unlocking her pursuit instinct is signaling that her initiative is not just acceptable, but attractive. You're not telling her what to do. You're redefining what her action means. Instead of seeing boldness as risky, she begins to see it as exciting. Instead of worrying it will make her look desperate, she starts believing it will make her unforgettable. This change in meaning is what activates the instinct she normally suppresses. Here's how it works in practice. When you say something like, "I like when someone goes after what they want," you're giving her a small psychological opening. It's not about her specifically, but she will naturally put herself into that frame. Her mind begins asking, "What if I did that with him?" That internal question is the seed, and when paired with curiosity and attraction, it grows quickly. You also unlock her instinct by staying grounded. If you act overeager, she feels pressure. If you act unsure, she feels responsibility. If you act needy, she loses polarity. But when you stay calm, steady, and certain of who you are, she feels that powerful masculine presence that makes her comfortable taking the first step. Women pursue the man who doesn't need them, but welcomes them. They chase the man who leads himself, not the man who tries to lead them. Remember what Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." Your mindset becomes the emotional atmosphere she steps into. If your energy says, "I hope she acts," she feels burdened. But if your energy says, "I'm here, grounded, and open to whoever meets my standard," she feels desire rising inside her because you are not trying to pull her in. You're letting her come closer. And once her pursuit instinct wakes up, she becomes expressive in ways you didn't expect. She sends the first text. She asks if you're free. She initiates the conversation. She suggests seeing you again. She flirts more openly. Not because she suddenly became someone different, but because you unlocked the part of her she normally keeps hidden. You created a space where she could act without fear, and desire filled the gap. If this resonates, drop a comment and write, "I see this clearly." Let's keep going. Next, we're diving into how to make her feel like pursuing you was her idea from the very beginning. Don't go anywhere. Number 9, make her feel it's her idea to chase you. My friend, here's where the real shift happens. A woman will only chase you when she believes the idea came from her, not from anything you pushed, hinted, or tried to engineer. If she feels pressured, she freezes. If she feels expected, she retreats. But if she feels ownership over the moment, her desire becomes 10 times stronger. She becomes bold, invested, and far more expressive than she typically allows herself to be. Your job is not to convince her. Your job is to create the emotional atmosphere where her mind naturally says, "I want to do this." Let me show you a real example. Leonard, 58, from Michigan, met a woman named Valerie, 55, at a weekend cooking class. The chemistry was obvious. She laughed easily, held eye contact longer than necessary, and kept finding reasons to stand near him. But whenever it came to actually taking a step forward, she stayed cautious. Not because she wasn't interested, but because she didn't want to risk being the one who tried too hard. Leonard didn't push. Instead, in the middle of a conversation about how people hesitate too much in life, he simply said, I've always admired people who don't overthink and just take the first step. It's rare, but it's powerful." He said it casually, like a man sharing a personal philosophy, not a hint. And something shifted inside Valerie. She smiled in a different way, softer and more intentional. The next afternoon, she texted him first to ask if he wanted to try a new cafe she'd been meaning to visit. She believed it was her idea, but Leonard created the frame that made it possible. Another example. Frank, 57, from California, had been talking to a woman named Dana, 54, at his gym. They shared great energy, but she stayed politely guarded. One day, while discussing how dating changes after 50, Frank said, "The most memorable moments in my life always started when someone wasn't afraid to make the first move." Then he changed the subject, giving her space. No pressure, no expectation, no spotlight. 3 days later, Dana approached him while he was stretching and said, "If you ever want to grab a smoothie after a workout, I'm in." She felt confident making the move because Frank had already reframed the idea as exciting, meaningful, and completely natural. Here's the psychological truth driving all of this. Women act on ideas they feel they created. They resist ideas they feel were given to them. When you talk about boldness in a positive, attractive way, you're not telling her to be bold. You're planting a seed in the soil of desire she already feels. The seed grows because she waters it, not because you push it. And once she takes the smallest step, sending a text, suggesting a plan, initiating conversation, her investment deepens. She's no longer just interested. She's involved. Women don't chase men they feel responsible for. They chase men who awaken a part of themselves they enjoy feeling. This is why your tone matters. Stay relaxed. Stay steady. Stay grounded. You don't say these things as bait. You say them as truth. When you embody that calm, self-led masculinity, she feels free to act without fear, hesitation, or self-judgment. If this resonates, drop a comment and write "I've seen this work." Let's keep going, my friend. Next, we bring everything together with the exact 3-line formula that flips her from curious to bold. Number 10, the 3-line formula she can't resist. My friend, we've talked about permission, psychology, instinct, and desire. Now we bring everything together. Because at the end of the day, you don't need a long speech, a perfect script, or a complicated strategy. You need 3 simple lines that speak directly to a woman's subconscious. 3 lines that make her feel admired, safe, excited, and bold all at the same time. 3 lines that shift her from waiting to acting. Before I give them to you, you need to understand why they work. Women don't respond to logic the way men do. They respond to how something makes them feel about themselves. If your words make her feel empowered, feminine, confident, and desired, she relaxes into her natural instinct. She stops worrying about judgment. She stops holding back. She steps toward you because your presence makes her feel like the most expressive version of herself. And these 3 lines do exactly that. They're simple, they're subtle, they're clean, but they hit her psychology at the deepest level. You're not telling her what to do. You're defining the kind of behavior you admire in a woman. And secretly, almost every woman wants to be that woman for a man she's attracted to. Stoic philosophy gives us the backbone of this formula. Epictetus taught that people act according to the value they assign to an idea. When you attach value, real, emotional value, to a woman's boldness, she begins to align herself with it naturally. She thinks she's acting freely, but she's acting inside the emotional frame you created. Now let's talk about the formula. It goes like this. Line 1. You know what I find insanely attractive? A woman who takes what she wants. This line activates her self-perception. It paints boldness as sexy. She instantly imagines what that behavior would look like with you. That image alone stirs desire. Line 2. It's rare, but when it happens, it's unforgettable. This creates exclusivity. You're not saying she should do anything. You're saying women who act like that stand out. And every woman wants to stand out to the man she's drawn to. Line 3. I'd be lying if I said I didn't love it when a woman surprises me like that. This removes the fear of judgment. It tells her clearly, calmly, without pressure, that she won't be embarrassed for wanting you. She'll be appreciated, admired, desired. These lines are powerful because they don't corner her. They don't expose her. They don't force the moment. They build an atmosphere where her boldness feels natural. And when a woman feels natural in her desire, she acts. She texts first. She hints openly. She asks you out. She makes the move. Not because you pushed her, but because she sees herself differently in your presence. And that's the real secret here. The formula doesn't change who she is. It unlocks the part of her she normally hides. The part she wishes she could show, but rarely feels safe enough to reveal. That's why this formula works on almost every woman. It honors her femininity. It celebrates her confidence, and it frees her from judgment. Use it with calm energy. Use it without expectation. Use it like a man who knows exactly who he is, and watch what she does next, because it will surprise you. Here's the truth, my friend. Everything you learned today was about understanding the subtle psychology women live with, but rarely talk about. You saw why they hesitate, how to make them feel safe, how to plant the right ideas, and how a few simple lines can shift them from curiosity into real action. When you use these tools with confidence and calm, the entire dynamic changes. You stop chasing, and she starts choosing. If you want the deeper scripts, the advanced psychology, and the private lessons I can't share publicly, make sure you join the channel membership. And if you want more videos like this every day, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you tomorrow.